So let's get started with your journey. Like, where are you coming from? I know you're from New York. You were in the finance industry, and then tell us how you got into music.
Yeah, I grew up in the South, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia. I was born in 1981, so hip hop is just the music of my generation, and it's kind of always been around. Like, it's been at lunch tables, and it's been at conversations and concerts that I attended. And so I majored in finance after college and worked in investment banking. And while I was at the bank, this is like 2004, 5, 6, right? Lupe Fiasco came out. And all of my friends and I were really frustrated about what was happening with radio and with television, because everything was getting real monoline. So you didn't have like diversity, you didn't have like underground stuff that would show up on MTV. All the songs on the radio, no matter what region you were in, were playing the same top 15, 20 songs, and we were all really frustrated by it. And the blog era was really blowing up, so there was all these new artists that showed up that had been around for a while but were doing really interesting things, like MF Doom or Sean Price, and then Lupe Fiasco. So I thought Lupe was dope, because Lupe was doing rhyme schemes that I hadn't heard before. He was kicking metaphors that were like fresh, and he was signed to a major, so he was gonna come out. So I started sending emails to my friends called Lupe Fiasco's Daily Quotable. And so I would quote Lupe, and Lupe would say something like, "You can't see me like B.I.G. on CMT. You're never gonna see Biggie Smalls on country music television." That's like such a dope line that anybody could have said for a long time, but he was the first one to say it. So I would explain it to my friends, and through that, I just fell in love with the act of having a conversation in the written form. Before that, I wasn't writing at all. And so I had a friend who was like, "Yo, you should take these emails and turn them into a blog." And I was like, blogs are played out. This is 2006. I didn't know what I was talking about. But, I was worried about like being lame and stuff. So she took my emails, put them into a blog spot, and was like, "No, here, now everybody can see your emails. You can save them." And I fell in love with it for that moment. So for the next 3 years, I just blogged while I was at work, and then I quit my job, ran around New York City, trying to figure out how to write about rap.
So you're really getting into hip hop, you're sending these emails, you start your blog. When was it that you were like, okay, what came after you quitting your job? Like, what? I remember you have like a snow trek story.
I did. So I had no relationships. I had no reputation. I didn't have that many reps. It would take me like 2 weeks to do an album review. It took me forever to write anything. And, but I felt like I was in New York City. I could throw a rock and hit a rapper in New York, so that's what I did. I just started writing about rappers on my block, like the guys who would rap at the bodega, at the corner store. So I put all these characters and words and do like 2,000 word features on like Sun Toucher, from 51st Street in Sunset Park. He never made it past my feature, but that's where I started. And I would cover open mics. So I would go to an open mic, and I'd sit in the back of the open mic with my audio recorder and record everything, take notes, go home, listen, and study the open mic, and write reviews about it. And just went outside again the next day and did it again. And so I met a lot of rappers that way. And so I was able to expand on my Rolodex.
So networking was extremely important in the beginning stages. I know you got into working with the Brooklyn Bodega.
Yeah, absolutely. So after you go outside enough times anywhere, you start to get closer to what the scene in the community is like. And on the East Coast, there's an organization called Brooklyn Bodega. They put on the Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival. And it's the biggest hip hop festival that takes place in New York City. And so I would go to their events that led up to the festival and hang out there and just start interviewing their rising artists and build relationships with them. And over time, they invited me to write for the website, which was like the biggest first success I ever had. It was dope.
Yeah. So you're working with Brooklyn Bodega. You're writing for them. At this time, I know your biggest goal was like to be the best rap writer of all time.
The greatest rap writer of all time, yes.
Right. Is that still?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because I know goals kind of change as you transition through different.
I think that as hip hop continues to grow and mature and evolve, there isn't a separation from it just being a part of who we are as a generation.
Right.
So like Obama's fist bumping and dusting his shoulders off, right? You've never seen a president do that before, but every president after, Trump uses hater all the time. So everything that goes forward will have some connection to it.
Right.
So therefore, no matter what we do or what I do, there'll always be this connection to it.
Yeah. And there was a time while you were working with Brooklyn Bodega where you heard that someone from HipHop DX was going to be in New York at the time.
Correct.
That's the moment that kind of shifted you to, really that led you to coming out to LA.
This was like, Malcolm Gladwell has this book, and it's an awesome book. It's called Outliers, and I highly suggest any and everybody read this book. And it talks about these outlier moments that really separate people from the most successful people from anyone less successful. And so my favorite hip hop website of all time is HipHop DX. Like I started reading that site in 2004. Major inspiration. That's where I found MF Doom and Lupe and all these guys to begin with. So all those writers on that publication back then meant a lot to me. And so they were some of the people I would benchmark as writers. And I was reading HipHop DX one day, and there was a post about Jake Payne, the editor-in-chief. He was going to be speaking at a talent search for Vegas Records in Newark, New Jersey. You guys heard of Vegas Records? I never heard of them since that day. And it was a blizzard outside. This is December. This is New York City. I was already having a good week. 2 days before that, I met Wes Jackson, who's the owner of Brooklyn Bodega, which is how I got to write for them in the first place. I almost slept in. I just started dating this girl at the time. Been trying to date her for like 8 years. I'm on a winning streak like no other. Almost sat out going to Vegas Records that day. And again, it's a blizzard outside, so I wake up Saturday morning. I'm calling over there. I'm like, are y'all still going to do this? I think you guys probably should reschedule another day. It's a blizzard outside. And they're like, no, we're going to do it. We're going to start a couple hours later. I was like, all right, cool. So I got out of bed. I trekked across 2 rivers in a blizzard, got to Newark, walked 15 minutes uphill in the snow, paid $50 to cover this event, hung around for 13 hours with America's most mediocre MCs, just so I could meet Jake Payne, impress him with my interview, so that he would know how much I knew about HipHop DX, and at the end of it, he was gonna offer me a job writing for him. And it worked. That's it.
The trek was worth it. So, like, how did that exactly happen, though? So you interviewed him?
That's exactly how it happened. Like, I interviewed him, and I asked him, like, I was like, yeah, I remember you guys did this piece on The Source magazine. It was like, I was asking very specific questions about posts, about content strategy. I was asking him about layout changes that had happened over time, why certain things, certain reviews around, like, it was a comprehensive.
Right.
It was probably like 10 years and 7 questions.
Right.
You know what I mean? I really thought about these questions. It wasn't like some freestyle stuff, you know?
Right.
I was trying to get a job. So it worked out. And the next month, I had my first feature in DX. The article was called 50, More Like Diddy. And it was about how, at that point, this is 2009, 2010. So it was about how, at this point, 50 Cent's career was going to look a lot more like Diddy's career than Jay-Z's. And he was going to stop rapping. It wasn't going to be about his music anymore. It was going to be about his business ideas. It was going to be about some friction he created on the side. But it wasn't going to be Teflon Don rapper 50 anymore. It was going to be 50 selling you stuff.
Right.
And I was right. It was correct. Actually, the article still holds up.
So at this point, the experience that you have leading up to this has been from the emails that you'd send to your friends, the research, you being a big fan of music, writing for the Brooklyn Bodega, being super aware of the HipHop DX brand. So now you're presented with this opportunity of moving to Los Angeles.
Well, let's slow down.
Okay.
That was my opportunity to freelance for DX.
Okay.
Right. So that's 6 months after I quit my job. So I felt like I was off to a good start.
Right.
But over the next 3 years, it was really going outside to every event. Those are the type of things that help build my relationship with HipHop DX. They didn't have a lot of resources in New York City at that time. The entire company was viral, so I helped fill the void there. The bodega stuff kept me in front of artists for the first time. For the first time in my career, I'm spending time with MCs, DJs, graffiti artists, and part of a cultural organization that was about the empowerment and uplifting of hip hop culture. So that helped me to end up hosting a couple of radio shows. I ended up hosting Brooklyn Bodega Radio, and that show became successful enough to where the station, PNC Radio, they offered me my own show. So on PNC at that time, Two Dope Boys had a show on the station.
Right.
Combat Jack, that's where he started, was on that station as well. That was an outlier as well. So over those 3 years now since I left, I went from interviewing rappers on my blog to having radio shows that I was hosting, to hosting events.
Yeah.
And after, how do I say this? Well, in 2011, there was an opportunity to interview for the news editor position at HipHop DX. So I went to interview for the news editor job. I was actually kind of sure that I would get it, but I didn't. And it's because I didn't know anything about SEO and news, online news skills. Right,
because writing news and writing other forms of writing, like features,
writing
is so different, right?
Writing news and fun writing are not the same.
Yeah.
Right, so, but that actually helped me get better, and it taught me the things that I needed to study to improve my understanding of what it meant to publish online.
Right.
And I think it had to be September 2012. Now, I know in the back of people's mind, maybe you're thinking, yo, how'd this guy quit his job and then just start writing about rap? How is he getting paid and paying bills while achieving his dreams? It's hard to achieve your dreams because dreams are expensive. Where was he working? I wasn't. And I saved a lot of money at the bank. And I saved enough money to where I felt like I had 5 years that I could just go. And after 5 years, if I still liked it, then I just go to journalism school and I, go the official route. And if I didn't, I go back to the bank.
Right.
Well, so we get to September 2012. This is 3 years. And I look at my account, I got 8 months worth of money left. And I'm like, man, I am not gonna make it. I don't know what to do. So I thought about, I literally looked at this ATM stub and I was like, man, maybe I should go back to the bank. I was like, all right, well, if I go back to the bank, what'll happen? I'm like, man, I can't go back to the bank. I'm gonna spend all my time at the bank. I won't be active. I'm making too much progress. I can't leave the streets. Kanye said, May said, never leave where you're hot. That's how May screwed up. So I couldn't do that.
Right.
So then I was like, all right, well, what happens if I go broke? What's that look like? So I was like, all right, well, I guess I gotta leave New York. So what do I do? I guess I moved back to South Carolina with my parents. So, okay, what do I do there? Well, I can go work on family business. And I know a bunch of artists now, and I have relationships with editors, so I can still do interviews on the phone. I can still do album reviews. I can still write on my own.
Right.
I got a couple of fraternity brothers who had nightclubs in South Carolina. I can bring rappers through and interview them there. I'm like, yo, I'm still making progress toward being the greatest rap writer of all time. I'm like, this ain't that bad no more.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, man, I'm gonna ride this till the wheels fall off. And then the next week I got the Homeboy Sandman album review, the second one, which was important to me because that was the first review I ever did for DX. A month after that, I got the Lupe review for Food and Liquor 2, which was the first Lupe review I ever did for DX, which is important to me. A month after that, I got invited to A3C to do all the on-camera stuff for HipHop DX, which was major.
That's dope.
That was dope.
Yeah.
It was in Atlanta. I got to meet the other side of the team. And then a week after that, I got the Good Kid, Mad City album review, which was, up until Yeezus, the most read album review in the history of the publication.
Right.
So I was like, yo, this is going really well. On December 4th, they invite me to their HipHop DX company meeting. It was in New York. And I was like, okay, that's dope. And on December 5th, they offered me Editor-in-Chief of HipHop DX. And that's how I moved out to LA. So I was 3 months, I almost quit 3 months too soon.
Right.
Like I was 3 months away from not getting everything that I invested in myself.
Right.
Like with the job. So it worked out.
That's typically how it is like right when you're getting to the point of like questioning like your risk taking and quitting your job or what you're pursuing. It's like right around the corner is like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's the reminder that stuff like money ain't gonna be the reason why you're not gonna get what you want. Like money kind of is, at least for me, it's the same. Like every time I've had money, there's always been just a little while until I didn't have money no more.
Right.
And then every time I didn't have money, it was like a little while until I had money again.
Right.
So had I been worried about money, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Right. So you get the position for Editor-in-Chief of HipHop DX.
Yeah, and I did not expect that. I expected...
That's big.
That was huge. That was outside of my goal.
Yeah.
Or at least what I thought I had earned at that point. You know, so it was awesome. It was, but also intimidating. It was like, okay, well, for a few reasons, but one of which is now everybody that I'd worked with at DX, all the different editors that I reported to, they all report to me now.
Yeah.
Like that's a tough thing for anybody in any space. And I hadn't been a staff member. Like I was a freelancer.
Right.
Like I wasn't like, I didn't go to their meetings, you know? I wasn't on salary.
Yeah.
I was on the new coast. So, but it was the first moment when I realized that my goals were attainable.
Right. So you're moving from East Coast to West Coast. Before we get into your journey in the West Coast, tell us the differences that you can see from coast to coast, from New York to LA, for anybody in here that's considering like, should I pursue the industry in New York? Should I pursue the industry in LA?
I think for me, the biggest differences are less about the industry.
Right.
And more just about the regions themselves. Like, everything in New York is urgent. Like, urgency is like paramount. Like, people are like urgent as hell getting on the subway. Like, people are competing for seats on the train. Like, no matter what people do not look at each other when they walk because they got to make sure that they can keep making progress to where they're walking to. New York is always telling you how broke you are. Like, every step, like you will get paid and then see like a limo and then feel broke, but then turn back to walk and step over a homeless guy, so now you feel rich again. Like, you gotta be rich just to be broke in New York. New York hates your guts. Like, it's an abusive relationship. But because of how urgent it is, there is a higher level of efficiency. So people don't necessarily waste time in the same way. Like, people take every conversation as you're very serious about it and you mean it. And it needs to happen now. Yeah. It may be more difficult to get like quality time because everything in New York is like this: 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes. Especially if you're in the media, if you're doing a junket. Like, if you have an interview in New York, you probably got 5 to 15 minutes, right? So that means you got to be on point to get the story that you want. Right. Over here in LA, there's no urgency. LA is like, nah, man, we chill over here. Why are you talking so fast? Yeah. You know what I mean? LA is like, hurry up and wait, which is good and bad, right? It may take you 3 weeks to get in touch with someone that you want to profile or you want to work with. But when you catch up with them, you got like 2 hours. You got significant time to make progress towards what you're looking for. Right. Those are the biggest difference that I saw. The other thing that's really, really happening right now is New York has priced out its artists in every field. So anybody who creates anything, they're moving out here now, or they're moving to Atlanta because it's more affordable. Companies are relocating their resources out here. So there's more studios out here. You're closer to the creation of music. which gets you closer to the art itself. It gets you ahead on the news in a lot of regards. All the celebrities live here anyway, so you can keep up with Instaculture, which is now more and more important to media's content strategies, whether that's awesome or awful. And because the weather is so consistent, you don't have, like, it's not as strenuous on you to go out and do what you
don't
gotta
have to trek snow.
There's no blizzards here. I never, here's something outside. Here's something that's different. LA messes up your memory. Nobody told me my memory would be messed up when I moved to LA. Nobody told me that whether it's January or June, I'm gonna be wearing the same clothes. So I don't have thoughts like, oh yeah, that's when I met homegirl with the umbrella. Nobody's got an umbrella. There ain't no umbrellas here. So 7 months goes by really, really fast.
Right.
So you got to base your year on award shows. You're like, oh, that's true. That was around the Grammys. That must have been like January or something.
Yeah.
I get it.
Okay, so you're editor-in-chief at HipHop DX. What was that experience like for you, especially since it was something that was intimidating and new for you?
Yeah, it was intimidating, it was new, and it was also really personal again because DX is, the publication that inspired me the most. Like, it could have been any other publication. I think there would have been a little bit more distance between how I felt about the company and my job and its relation to my own personal self-esteem, because I really cared about everything that really happened at DX. So when good stuff happened, it was a great day.
Yeah.
And when bad stuff happened, it was a terrible, terrible, awful, no good, very bad day.
Yeah.
It's hard to really describe what the experience was succinctly. I will say this. The juncture when I got a chance to run DX is another one of those outlier moments in history. Not just for me, but just for anybody in media, right? So I took over, it was announced that I took over February 2013. Now, February 2013, blogs were still powerful. You had lists on every site. People premiered music on blogs. YouTube wasn't a primary source of revenue for a lot of people yet.
Right.
Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal streaming, not really existent. And social media hadn't been the place where all the news was breaking first.
Yeah.
So relationship with artists was different. Like, artists would retweet stories. They would retweet positive news about them. So some companies had content strategies that was based on that. They were like, hey, let's say nice stuff about people, and then they'll share our links. Well, that doesn't exist at all now. So in 5 years, just the nature of what it meant to be a hip-hop blog, we'll say, completely different. The nature of what it meant to share and sell music completely changed. The nature of what it meant to create, how much money it costs to do so.
Yeah.
Everything I watch for the most part is on video.
Yeah.
Some kind of video. But video's way more expensive than like a news story. So the entire business model changed in 5 years. And when I took over DX, I spent a month working with Jake Payne, the previous editor-in-chief. He and senior leadership, we were the only ones that knew that I was taking over. The staff didn't. So I went for like a month. We put together what the new focus was, what the new content strategy was going to be before we presented it to the team. And then we presented it to the team, and everyone's like, okay, cool, we're on board. And then the next day, me, Charles Cherian, the owner of DX, Michael Hogan Miller, and we go to dinner with DJ Vlad. And Vlad is like, man, you gotta start doing videos. So the next day, after dinner with Vlad, now we had a video program we had to figure out.
Right.
Like, that's how fast things were going. And I was excited to be able to see the end of an era, but also the beginning of one. Because I think it's always important to understand where, obviously where things were, but also how things got here.
Yeah.
And to see it from a budget standpoint, it's been priceless.
Right. So you're getting from like focusing on writing as editor-in-chief, managing and delegating tasks, to now kind of developing a whole new content strategy, marketing strategy for DX.
Yeah, I think it was kind of an addendum. You know, one thing that I had the benefit of having such great teachers at DX, like, you know, Omar Burgess, he was our features editor at the time. Like, that dude is an incredible writer, man.
Yeah.
And he's an incredible person. You know, Kathy Iandoli's written books. She's got all the best features all over the place. She was running our music section. She was probably underutilized, but at the same time, like, her knowledge was so crazy.
Amazing,
you know, Soren Baker's, I mean, he's the OG of everything.
Yeah.
And he was out here, so he helped me quite a bit understand how LA was and make a lot of relationships that way at the same time. So the way our company was structured, or the site was structured, was there was an editor for every section, and everyone was kind of siloed.
Right.
So from an efficiency standpoint, from a site standpoint, it kept responsibilities in line, which was good. But because, you know, I think everybody is understaffed in life right now.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for people to do things outside of that as well. So I ended up spending most of my time in video at the same time. So, you know, the pros and cons of that were I wasn't on site as much as I wanted to or even expected to going into the role, especially after spending 6 weeks, 8 weeks putting together this content strategy and Vlad just throwing that shit in the trash can. But on the flip side, on the other side of that, the upside is I got a chance to like play with video and and develop something and work with a bunch of people who taught me everything. You know, Ox over here, he was one of the early people in our video program. He probably put more work into that than anybody else. Him and James, they're the ones that are there the longest, creating all these, you know, awesome how-tos and step-by-steps. Jessica Rue, she works with Delicious on a lot of stuff, was the first video intern I think we had.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
Is James still at DX?
No, he left. He left this year, yeah. He did. I think he's working, he's not with DX. I know he left DX, so we'll see. But, you know, so, again, like I said, the media industry is completely different now. Blogs are completely different now. This last freshman cover for XXL, their little side feature editorial said, the end of the blog era. And I'm like, man, XXL, y'all like 5 years late, man. But that's how end it is. Now it's something people pick up paper to read about, which has been dead for like 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like.
So what are your thoughts? Like, what are your personal thoughts on where media is right now? Like, for aspiring journalists, for artists who are trying to get out there, like, what is the platform that you want to be on to promote yourself, to get a career in?
I think, you know, media is such a broad term now, right? Like, like everybody in this room is in media. You know, we're like a Truman Show in our own pocket. You know, like if I just tune into people's IG just to see what they doing, and when I'm doing that, I'm not checking a blog. I'm not watching a TV show. You know, I'd almost rather watch Tekashi do anything than anybody else talk about anything else.
Yeah.
No matter how I feel about him, he's just that entertaining.
Yeah.
And so that's a different kind of definition of media.
Right.
Like, who are the bad guys in the media? Right. And the other challenge that the media has that I think us as consumers don't consider on a daily basis is that we're in an era where news is a profit center. So there's this expectation that the news is supposed to honor this idea of integrity that we don't even honor or expect our elected officials to honor, and forget about the fact that they get paid when we click.
Yeah.
One way or the other, right? Now, maybe there's other ways to do that, to create these awesome in-depth pieces that go on for a long time. Those are the best, and those outlets are incredible. And if anybody gets a chance to write for those or to participate in that type of content, hold on to it, don't let it go, do everything you can to win at that. But not every organization is funded well enough for that to go on as long.
Yeah.
Like, you see, whatever you think about the Daily News, right? Here's a storied New York publication that's been out like 80 years. They just let go half their staff 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Half. Whatever you think about Complex, right? They were bought by Verizon, which is an ISP.
I didn't know that.
So Verizon like people who can give you your internet, they also own Complex. So now we got rid of net neutrality, right? So internet companies don't have to provide the same access to people anymore. So Verizon can say, anybody who wants to visit Complex, we'll make it faster and quicker. And anybody who's making anything that competes with Complex, we're gonna make it slow and whack, right? NBC is owned by Comcast, you know, so they can do the same thing.
Right.
So now we're in a space that regardless of how dope your content is or isn't, if you're not owned by the right people, the medium that we use the most, the internet, isn't fair game anymore. It's not electricity, it's not oxygen. So I don't know what to tell people on how to compete in an environment that even when you're doing the right thing, if you're owned by the wrong person, people still can't find you. It's just a different space.
Right.
I think that's whenever I'm in situations like that, just generally speaking in life, that's when I have to focus back on, okay, who do I want to be? What are the things I need to do to improve and work in that direction? And let the universe take care of the rest.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick winners and losers when everybody thinks the industry that you're in is a loser. Or at worst, nefarious.
Yeah.
Like being a part of the media isn't, it's like the media is just defending itself all the time now. What do you do with that?
Right. So at DX, you created the DX Breakdown, which was very successful, super dope, some of the most rich content. Raise your hand if you guys have seen the DX Breakdown.
Word up. Let's go.
Nice. Dope. Tell us a bit about the development of that.
Yo, man, it's
and the exit.
Yeah. I'll break it down.
Do it. Let's break it down.
So it's cool, man. So me, James, and Ak, right? So we were the most consistent people on the video team when we started the video platform, probably a year after we started the video platform. And the first thing we decided to do when we started video was real basic stuff. We were like, let's ask some rappers to come over. We'll give them a microphone, and then we'll ask them to rap. And so that was our first series called Hollywood Freestyle. And people had to climb the ladder, rapper climb the ladder, give rapper microphone, rapper rap, rapper climb down, right? That's how much we didn't know about video. We were like, okay, when they get down, well, how about we just sit them in a chair and we give them a microphone and we'll ask them questions, right? So that's pretty much where the space was in general, right? Everything was either rappers rapping or rappers asking questions. And right after that, or interviews. And right after that, we saw how news was gonna start happening on a smaller scale. There wasn't a lot of places that was doing daily news content, period, especially in hip hop back then, on YouTube. And so the next thing we created was the DX Daily. And so the DX Daily was championed by the Michael Hogan-Miller, who was the COO at the time. And it was a daily 2-minute news package that had 3 stories in it in 2 minutes. And so SEO was all messed up. None of our stuff went viral. Nothing good happened. But we stay consistent. So we have a show where rappers rap. We got another show where we ask rappers questions. And then we got a third show where we tell people what rappers talked about online. That was pretty much what most of those DX Daily episodes were about, stuff that happened on Twitter and Instagram. And then Jay-Z and Solange get into a fight in an elevator. And that happened like on Sunday, but there was so many twists and turns when this went down that by Friday, me and James were like, look, man, this is what we're gonna do this week. We're not gonna do another episode of the DX News. We're just gonna talk about all the crazy stuff that happened with Jay-Z and Solange fighting in an elevator. I guess Solange fighting Jay-Z in an elevator is probably the fair way to say it. And so we put together a 4-minute video. Instead of 2 minutes, we doubled it, 4 minutes, talking about this fight and all these other people and the rumors about whatever. And by far, the biggest episode we put out. We got like 1,200 views. Like, it was like, yo, we doing something dope, because everything else was getting like 400 views, right? And so we were like, man, there's something to this. So what we decided to do after that was every Friday, instead of doing the same thing we did Monday through Thursday. We decided we just wanted to break the daily. So we were like, whatever the organization's been asking us to do, Friday will be the one day where we don't do any of that. Mm-hmm. We'll just do the exact opposite.
Right.
And just take the skills that we learned. Like we got faster at, doing the news, we got faster at writing it, but it was always some bigger topic that made more sense, right? And so that's where the concept of the show came about. I wouldn't say it was successful from a view standpoint, even if it outperformed the other stuff that we were doing.
Yeah.
And maybe a year and a half, 2 years after that, we did an episode of The Breakdown. And I've got a few people that I really admire in media, and I'm always scared to reach out to them unless it's something I'm really proud of and I feel confident in. Then I'm like, let me just see what they think. And so one of them is a writer by the name of Torre. He has a great podcast. He's been around forever. I think he's the greatest rap writer of all time. Uh-huh. And so we did this episode called Is Lean Killing Lil Wayne? But we didn't want to be that hard on him. So we said, is Lean killing Lil Wayne's career?
Okay.
And in this piece, we talk about Wayne having a seizure on a plane and getting flown to airports. And then we talk about Wayne talking about his addiction on like Katie Couric's show. Mm-hmm. And then we had exclusive interviews with 3 different artists talking about how they made their best music once they got sober and they stopped doing drugs. So it was like a comprehensive package that was about a big artist that had newsiness, history of stuff, and exclusives in it, which was always the goal, because when you have exclusives in the package, then now you're not just regurgitating other things that other people are saying. You actually put extra work and research into it. And so I sent it to Torre, and I was like, man, what do you think? And he was like, well, 1, it's too long. And I was like, oh, man, forget that. Yeah. Everybody's been saying content's too long. That's not true. I watch people watch Netflix on the treadmill, on their phone. If it's dope, they'll stick around. But then 2, he was like, also, you spent too much time in the beginning recapping what happened. That's what happened to us on our MSNBC show. It was once a week, and by the time we were on air, everyone already knew what happened. So you don't need to break down what happened so much. And he said the third thing was you need to try to find a way to make it move more. So, because we're using tripods, and it was like a guy standing there talking. And so I was like, okay, cool. I like number 2 and number 3. Less news, make the camera move. Yeah. And so that was like, okay, these are good notes. 2 weeks go by, and I'm like, all right, James, this is how we're going to do it this week. What we're going to do is I'm going to sit at the desk. We're going to go back to what Ak used to like to do, get a monopod. Mm-hmm. So you're going to shoot on the monopod, and you're going to move the camera every time we cut back to on camera. So every time on camera, it's going to look like it's a different angle. And instead of talking about news at all, we're going to talk about Tupac and De La Soul's forgotten rap beef. And we're just going to break down something that has nothing to do with anything, but it's going to move, and we won't have to worry about news. Yeah. And eureka. It was a breakthrough moment. Mm-hmm. After that, every breakdown we did was getting 50,000, 150,000 in the year. They started getting like 1 million. So that was a big, big change. Yeah. And it took 2 years to get to the point where now here's a product that has core foundation tenets and covenants. Yeah. We have explicit things that we do on purpose. Mm-hmm. Down from the script to shots at different points in time. Right. That can take you from, okay, it's a big week. We can talk about Game beefing with Meek Mill right now. And then we can shift to Black Lives Matter, and it'll be on the same topic, and people will still stay with us. Yeah. The most impressive thing, I won't say impressive, but the thing I'm most proud of about the Breakdown series on HipHop DX is that series had a 72% retention rate. These are all videos that are 10 minutes or longer. So I always tell Torre this now. I'm like, man, you told me it was too long, man. These people be hanging out with me on average 7 minutes. Yeah. That's the people who don't like it. Yeah. The people who accidentally click on it or they watch it again, because a lot of people watch them again, that's cool. But engagement is the only thing for me that I feel is the truest measure about how much anybody cares about anything you do. Right. Like how active are they? How long will they stay? Will they leave a comment? Breakdown did that.
Yeah. So it took some exploring for you to find like that thing that worked.
Yeah, a whole lot of failure. A lot of it. A bunch of videos with no views, man.
Yeah.
You know how demoralizing that is?
Yeah.
You spend hours putting together something that you think is dope, and like your friends don't even watch it?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Did it ever get to the point for you where you were like, I mean, it was kind of your job. You couldn't just quit. Like,
I mean, you
I'm
can
not
quit
gonna do
anything.
video.
I mean, you could definitely quit anything.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely had thoughts. You know, there were some challenging moments as editor-in-chief as well. I think company culture is always something that
Super
you have to feel good about no matter what job you're doing or where you're working. Mm-hmm. I never thought about quitting writing about rap, though.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that's never, like, I'd rather do that all day than anything.
Right.
Write and communicate. Like, like if I could do that for a living all the time forever, I'm good.
Yeah. So you landed pretty much your dream job, editor-in-chief of this publication that you've always been a fan of. You create this really successful video segment, and now you're considering leaving DX and passing the torch of this amazing segment that you created.
Shout out to Trent Clark. He's editor-in-chief of DX. He's in the back right there. Yeah, you know, at some point, I think, you know, things do run their course. But I got to the point where I realized that it was becoming really challenging for me to feel good about what I was creating. Now, it became challenging for me to feel good about what I was creating was living. And so this was, let's say it was September 2016, we'll say. I tore my Achilles tendon playing basketball, killing these kids on the court. That was nasty.
Breaking ankles.
Right. I hit my last shot, though. I retired, but I hit my last shot. So I tore my Achilles, and I had to wear a cast for 10 weeks. And so for 10 weeks, I'm in my bedroom, and we moved production of the show from the office to my bedroom. And so I was like, yo, like the wall with the albums, that's like my bedroom.
You made it work.
Yeah. So that taught me more than anything else. That taught me how many resources I didn't need for anybody else to do what I wanted to do anyway. I was like, yo, I can do this at my crib, like all the time.
Yeah. You
know? And so I learned a lot from that process, but I was still on one leg every week. You can't see it in these episodes. If you go back and watch, is Kendrick Lamar the GOAT? Kendrick Lamar, greatest rapper of all time. You will see in that video, my face is really stressed out the whole time because Tuesday I had surgery and Wednesday I'm like this on OxyContin trying to make this work.
Yeah.
And so at the end, so
I'm gonna go watch
that one. It's like, I'm like this, you know? And so, so we did a lot of episodes at my crib then. And after that, I don't think we ever went back to the office. I think we shot the rest of them in my spot because it was, we got a better response from the audience with the different album covers.
Good.
Yeah. So even if people didn't care what we were talking about, they'd be like, you know what, I do like the Fugees though. Where the Fugees been? And so that ended up becoming part of the branding. Now, based on how I felt about the company at that time, and the fact that I didn't really like where I was placing the content anymore, and realizing that I can do all this stuff on my own now. Now my house is being branded DX. It was kind of like, oh man, like the more I keep doing this, the more I keep getting sucked in. So May 2017, I get invited to debate at Oxford Union. And so Oxford Union is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, debating society on the planet. So like Einstein's debated there, and Obama, and O.J. Simpson. And they asked me to debate or participate in debate about whether Kanye West is more relevant than William Shakespeare, which is actually a pretty good question.
Congrats on that.
Thank you. It was dope. Thank you. And they asked me to debate the Shakespeare side because they had too many people wanting to say Kanye was more relevant than Shakespeare. I know nothing about Shakespeare. Like I never made it through any of those plays when I was in school. I would, found other ways around it. But YouTube, you can learn anything on YouTube. So I learned a lot about Shakespeare on YouTube. And ended up winning my argument, and then my side won the debate. And as soon as I got back, I was like, man, I gotta go. I gotta get out of here right now. This world is too big. And there was too many kids on the other side of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Quoting videos I made in my bedroom on one leg.
Right.
You know, so I was like, it's time to grow.
It's like a period of awakening for you, it seems.
It was. I mean, you know, maybe the awakening happened 9 months before that. You can argue, but that was like, you know, this makes no sense now.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I'm too stressed every day to not feel good about the stuff that, for the first time, truthfully, I really saw people who felt better after they watched it.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if I leave now, then imagine how great I would feel if I felt great about everything else that was happening in my life.
Yeah, moving on to like the next level of opportunities.
I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew I had to quit.
So
there was no plan. Yeah, there was no plan.
Okay.
There wasn't really a plan when I quit the bank in the first time. Right? So it wasn't.
I feel like when you do it once, when you take that leap once, you're like, well, I made it this far.
Yeah, I mean, how do you know who you are unless you fail at something?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're safe all the time, if you don't know what taking an L is, how creative are you?
Right. That's a quotable right there.
You know?
If I could snap, I would.
So then I quit, and you know, Nona and I talked about things for like a week and a half, and went back and forth, and in the end, it was just better for me to separate.
That must have been hard, because it was like one thing that I've recently had conversations with friends about when it comes to the industry is like, once you actually reach to the point of kind of attaining a dream that you've always had, and you're kind of in it now, things don't, because when you're outside of it, it's like, oh my gosh, and then you're in it, and it's like this new environment, and then you're kind of, you reach your next potential. I think there's so many distractions sometimes, right? And I think, you know, for me personally, because I agree with you on that, and I feel like the most challenging points along my personal journey came when I was making decisions that I thought were strategically the right thing to do, outside of decisions that were the right thing to do because that it felt like the right thing to do. Right.
Like whenever I made decisions because I'm like, oh, this makes sense if I do it like this, you know what I'm saying? And then, because I think this is going to happen, and then I know this will be, then I always find myself in a place where I'm like, maybe I'm effective, maybe I'm making more money, but I'm not necessarily like loving it.
Right.
Like, I don't understand why anybody will want to be a writer if they don't love it. It's doing homework every day. Yeah. Every day you're writing papers. Did you like writing papers in school?
I did.
I liked it too. But if I didn't, I wouldn't do this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you don't get paid. Like the people who get paid own their content or built something big enough to where someone gave them equity in something else. That's where we are now in the space. Either you have equity or you are disposable. It's like either you're an NFL owner or you're a player. Yeah. And every week there's new writers. Everybody wants to talk to their favorite people on the planet. Yeah. Everybody wants to take pictures with whoever their favorite celebrities are. And everybody wants to know somebody who knows some celebrities. So they could tell their friends that their friend was there when Astroworld dropped and they said it's dope. So now they know that they're the hottest music friend in their circle. Yeah. We've all been doing this since lunch. Right. There's a glamour to it that is outside or that doesn't reflect on the work that it actually takes to be amazing at this. And when I say amazing at this, I mean like do it consistently, prolifically, and have that passion still spill through your pen. Right. You can always tell a writer who's tired of writing. Yeah. They phone it in. Font size real big. Yeah. 3 sentences. Double spaced. A bunch of Instagram pictures. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Phone it in. They don't care no more. Yeah. You know, they're trying to get cool points so that maybe they can get a label gig or something. Yeah. You know, maybe they can join some marketing company. Yeah. That's where all the writers go. All the writers who are either tired of not making as much money as they should, don't own their content, or just don't have the passion anymore. They're all like in marketing.
Yeah. So you quit DX.
Yes.
You made that leap. You decided to move on. Now you're at Empire. Was there something that happened before that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what? You know, like.
And you do other things too. You do Shade 45.
Yes. I'm on a learning spree like I haven't been on in a very long time, and that's enriching and it's empowering and it's challenging. It's definitely when I'm in those spaces at the same time, it's always more difficult for me to process information quickly, so it slows down my creative output. But in the long run, it's these type of investments that are always separated my point of view, my perspective, and my content from other people. So yeah, I quit DX. I didn't know what I was going to do, but. The day after my last meeting with the owner, I had 3 offers. I got offers from these cryptocurrency billionaires in Colorado. They're all from South Korea, and they want to get into entertainment. They had Little Flip. Little Flip was the artist they had just signed at that time. And these guys got they probably lose $1 billion in their couch, you know what I'm saying? These guys are super paid. So they wanted to give me a bunch of money to be myself. And then I got an offer from All Def Digital with Russell Simmons. Russell and I have been talking at that point for 18 months, 2 years, for a long time. I'm a big fan of Russell. And I got an offer from Ambrosia for Heads, which is a website run by Reggie Williams and Jake Payne. And Jake was the previous editor-in-chief of HipHop DX, my mentor. He's the guy I trekked through the blizzards to go meet. And
does he know this story, by the way?
The blizzard story?
Yeah.
Yeah, he knows the blizzard story. He definitely knows the blizzard story now. Yeah, that was 10 years ago now. Yeah, definitely. I got to do some of that anniversary. I'll come back to that.
You should.
But so the cryptocurrency guys were going to pay me a lot of money. It didn't feel right. I didn't really know him that well. But we stayed in touch. We ended up working on some projects together later, so that was thumbs up. I was going to go with All Def Digital. Yeah. I was really leaning towards that. And Ambrosia for Heads and Reggie and Jake, those guys are amazing. I had so much respect for them that I was like, okay, well, let me really consider what they're talking about. And I went to, HipHop DX used to be above this bar called Good Times at Davy Wayne's, right? So I went over to that bar one day. I had 3 signs. This has never happened to me in my life before. Maybe 3 times this has happened in my life. I had 3 signs around this whole thing. So I go to the bar below HipHop DX, and I'm having a drink with some friends. This is after I left DX. And I'm standing there, and somebody walks into the bar with an Ambrosia for Heads shirt on. And I'm like, I've never seen an Ambrosia for Heads shirt in my entire life. I've been at festivals and not seen an Ambrosia for Heads shirt. You know what I mean? I've been at rap concerts. I'm at a 70s bar in Hollywood. Me and no other rap fans around.
Yeah.
And here comes Ambrosia for Heads walking in. I'm like, that's weird. And so I was like, that's one sign. Walking into DX bar, here come Ambrosia for Heads, either way. 2, later that week, I was like, man, let me check out some stuff. So I turned on this podcast that the owner of Ambrosia for Heads was doing. He was talking about his time in France, and he was talking about his experience in hip hop and media and his journey, and it was really inspiring. I was like, man, this sounds like the kind of guy I can relate to. I like this guy. And then at the end of it, the guy who hosted the podcast was like, all right, cool. We just wrapped up our interview with Reggie Williams from Ambrosia for Heads. Stay tuned for our next segment. It's called The Breakdown. And I was like, oh, snap. That's scary.
What?
That's scary. I'm like, when was this podcast published? It was published on August 19, 2017 or 16 or whatever, which is my birthday. I was like, man, I got to do this. Yeah. That's too much.
Yeah,
it's too much.
Yeah.
So I ended up working, I signed on with Ambrosia. And the package is amazing. They're incredible people to work with. Their Facebook audience is huge. I had another distribution for my content. I got to create it all. And that's how I rock. And maybe 5 months, 7 months after that, Russell Simmons gets caught up in the hashtag Me Too stuff. And so they had a mass exodus at All Dev Digital. So they had to change their entire situation over there. Like they had some very real adjustments they have to. A lot of people left and had to wash their resumes off.
Yeah.
So had I gone where I was going to go, I don't know what this would look like that. You know what I mean? And it all just came from, those signs. And I'm
from that shirt.
From that shirt, the podcast with the name of my show segment after it, that was published on my birthday, man.
Yeah.
You can't run away from that.
No.
Can't run away from that. So, work with Ambrosia and everything's dope. I'm still on Shape 45, all out show with Rude Jude. And I get so this is when things got, this is how I got to Empire, which is like a little bit different too. So I get a call from, I have really close relationships with like Strange Music. They were all the guys at Strange Music were really impactful on me when my freelance career was first starting, because they were the first ones to actually give me like prime access to their artists. And those artists always overperform. So I've got a close relationship with all those guys. And they were doing their distribution through a company called Ingrooves.
Right.
Ingrooves is another distribution record label here. And they offered me a role to help them with their storytelling. And it was really interesting to me because they were super flexible with what they were offering. The money was awesome. And they wanted to work around everything that I was already creating. So I was like, okay, and they really just needed me to help them with their relationships with Apple Music and Spotify. So I was like, this doesn't sound too intensive. And I was thinking about doing it. I was like, okay, yeah, I guess why not? I'll go ahead and do it. And I'm at some meetings at the Recording Academy, and another friend of mine calls me. He has a project that he wants to put out. It's called Forever MC. It's actually really good. He had a project he wanted to put out with Empire.
Yeah.
And he was like, yo, can you put me in touch with Empire? And I was like, okay, cool. So I hit up Nima from Empire. I did Empire's first profile piece ever as an organization. And now as a label, they're top 10 independent label in all genres, #1 in hip hop. And so I have a relationship with them, just based off of, years of covering their artists and stuff like that. And so I call up Nima. I'm like, hey, M80's got this project. He wants to get in touch. I just passed him your email. And he was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, Justin, what's been going on? I'm like, oh, nothing. Oh, yo, Ingrooves is trying to get me to join. They just made me an offer. And then Nima was like, well, are you asking me if I think you should go to Ingrooves? And I was like, no, not really, but what do you think?
Yeah.
And he was like, I wouldn't do it because they're going one way and you're going another way. And I was like, okay, cool, all right. I was still going to take the gig because I think it's interesting to be able to learn what the other side of the industry is like. Like the media side of the industry is the side that's always asking for stuff. Can I get this feature? Did you really say this? Do you mind retweeting or sharing this article? Like, it's just the side that's always asking stuff. And the label side or the business side, this is the first time I've been on the side of the industry that sells music. So everyone treats me differently now, obviously, because I can give you money instead of talking about you nicely and hopefully you'll get some money, But the things I get to learn are so different, which is why I was going to take the Ingrooves gig. Even if it didn't last for 6 months, at least I got a perspective that I've never had before. And so I was like, all right, well, it doesn't matter what direction I'm going or they're going, because for what I need it for, it's only going to help the things that I ultimately want to do, be the greatest rap writer of all time. And so the next day, Nima hits me up and he's like, yo, did you sign with Ingrooves yet? I'm like, no. He's like, well, don't sign with them yet. Ghazi wants you to come to San Francisco. Come to San Francisco. We want to talk to you about an opportunity there. I was like, okay. Their pitch was way better, the Ingrooves pitch.
Yeah.
Right? And truthfully, because of two reasons. One, as an organization, they're so inspirational. Like, this dude, Ghazi, is an artist who came from a tech background. He was at Sun Microsystems and all these places. He actually worked with Ingrooves. He started his career there and developed their entire hip-hop urban vertical. He keeps his company in San Francisco because he's from the Bay, and he just wants to represent the Bay all the time. So everything about him is about family and success. hence the name Empire, even before it was one. So he thinks things further into fruition.
Right.
So these are things that are really important to me in terms of, learning and environment. I have a very difficult time making the progress I need if I don't have dope mentors around me.
Yeah.
So that was a major thing. And their artists were fresher. Like they had more artists that I cared about. So I was like, man, this will work out. Let's give this a shot. And that's how I ended up at Empire.
Yeah. Amazing. Congrats.
Thank you. I'm smiling.
I feel like I could talk to you for hours because you have an amazing journey. But I do want to give everyone that's here a chance to ask you some questions. So one thing that I want to leave off with is, what advice would you give somebody that is looking to have their own come up in the industry, whether it's as an artist, as a journalist? Like, what has been the most valuable things that you've taken away from everything that you've done?
Be specific. Like, I'm very specific in my goals. My goal is to be the greatest rap writer of all time. But I know what that looks like. I've got a series of dream jobs that I've been chasing along the way. Like, working in investment banking was a dream job. Like, being Editor-in-Chief of DX was a dream job.
Yeah.
One of my dream jobs is to host the Grammys. Another one is to be a U.S. Senator. So I have measures to get to where I want. And the macro never changes or leaves. So whatever it is you want to do, the more specific you are about that thought, that idea, that diamond in the sky that you're reaching for, the more success you'll have. And the easier it'll be for you to tell when you're off track, which is the other thing that always happens in media. Again, the whole space changed so fast in 5 years. Even
keep changing.
It's going to. The data, like now, the only thing that'll change now is different companies will own everything, right? Spotify will have a content division. They already got it. Every record label is building their own blogs. Media is turning into marketing. So the more specific you are in your goals, as a writer, as a journalist, pretty much anything, that'll be helpful. 2, be able to write as long, awesome, investigative, dope, creative pieces, but also be able to write really small too. Like, be able to write ill tweets, dope captions with the right emojis on Instagram, because that's also an evolution that we're seeing in media as well. There's so much news that's broken on social media, and social media is broken English, and with a lot of pictures. So be able to communicate those ideas that you have in every medium, whether that's on camera, off camera, Instagram, whatever. Be prepared, because that'll give you the opportunity to keep having a job. Whether things go small like we see them now from a content standpoint, from a writing standpoint, to pictures, or they get real big and they turn into deep, 5,000 word pieces, etc. You gotta diversify as much as possible. Right. And 3, you're only as dope as you are committed. So if you find yourself becoming less committed to it, go with it. And don't feel bad if your goals change or your dreams change. That's okay too. But you won't be able to achieve the things that you want without realizing that, like, the only people who get it are the people who don't quit.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Can we give him a hand?
Thanks.